Red and blue lights danced across Silver Pine Lake, flashing off the water like broken fire, and I just stood there in my muddy boots, police chief uniform wrinkled from a weekend I never got to enjoy, watching as Karen Doyle, the great and powerful HOA president, got cuffed right in front of my cabin. She kept hollering about abuse of power, like she was on the 6 o'clock news. But all I felt deep in my chest was relief, pure, stubborn relief, because just hours before she'd tried to ruin me. Not just as a neighbor, not just as a regular guy out for peace, but as chief of police. Yeah, me, claiming I'd threatened a pack of teenagers with a gun. Can you imagine? Chief Miller, the bad guy in my own neighborhood. Yeah, that happened. But let me back up a sec. Before the sirens, before the chaos, before Karen turned my quiet Friday into a circus, it all started with the most innocent thing you can picture, a knock at my cabin door. Sun was barely dropping behind the pines. I just brewed up a strong cup of coffee, finally getting ready to park myself on the porch, and for once, do nothing. Absolutely nothing. That cabin, let me tell you, it's been my hideaway for 5 solid years. My little slice of peace away from radio chatter, reports, paperwork, and the endless mess of being the only guy with a badge in a county that never shuts its eyes. But peace, well, it doesn't last long. Not with a new HOA board prowling the neighborhood. So I opened the door, expecting maybe a delivery, maybe a neighbor saying hi. Nope. Instead, there's this kid, couldn't have been more than 17. Aviator shades, Bluetooth speaker slung on his shoulder, grinning at me like he just won the lottery. Behind him, I spot a parade of cars parked all wild and crooked along the gravel. Jet skis already bobbing at my dock like the start of a summer movie. Yo, the kid goes, gum-snapping, cool as can be. My mom said we could use this cabin for our party tonight. His mom. You ever get that feeling in your gut, like a warning shot before the real trouble starts? I squinted at him, and he shoved his shades up, cocky as ever. Yeah, Karen Doyle, HOA president, she said this is community property now. Community property. Those 2 words, let me tell you, they're the first spark in a wildfire that nearly burned us all. I kept my voice steady. Son, this isn't community property. I bought this place 5 years ago. It's private. The kid rolled his eyes so hard I thought they'd fall out. Yeah, my mom said you'd say that. He turned and hollered back to his little crowd. He's tripping. Guys, it's fine. I shut the door before I said something I regret. Not 10 minutes later, my phone rings. Old habits, Chief Miller. And there it is, Karen's voice, sharp and nasal, like someone scraping ice off a windshield. David, you're refusing access to HOA facilities. That's against community policy. I pinched the bridge of my nose, fighting the urge to yell. Karen, this is my property. I have the deed. She let out this dry, smug little laugh. We'll see about that. My son's having his party whether you like it or not. Click. That should have been the end of it. My first mistake, thinking it actually would be. Next morning, I'm barely awake, and already 3 violation emails are sitting in my inbox. Noise disturbance, unauthorized use, improper parking. Which was just hilarious, considering I spent the night alone, just me and my old dog. My truck hadn't even moved. But I knew what was going on. Karen had made a sport out of this. Find a widow for planting roses instead of HOA-approved shrubs, made another neighbor repaint her mailbox because it wasn't community cheerful. Now it was my turn. She wanted to make a public lesson out of me. So I waited. Noon rolls around, and here comes a pickup truck, bed stuffed with folding chairs, coolers, even a big, ugly banner. Silver Pine HOA Youth Appreciation Event. Out hops Karen's son, Ethan, leading a pack of teens, unloading speakers and grills like they were setting up for Coachella. I stepped off my porch, still keeping my cool. You got 10 minutes to get all that off my property. Ethan just smirked. What are you going to do, call the cops? I almost laughed out loud. Something like that, I told him. Not 5 minutes later, a white SUV glides up, and out steps Karen herself. Hair sprayed within an inch of its life, sunglasses reflecting the whole damn lake, clipboard ready for battle. Chief, she says in that syrupy, condescending tone, you're interfering with an HOA-sponsored event. I suggest you go inside before you embarrass yourself. I looked her right in the eyes. Did you file for a public event permit? Karen? She froze, just a flicker. Excuse me. Because if you didn't, you're in violation of county law, unauthorized assembly, no insurance coverage. She hesitated, lips tight, then shrugged at her son. Keep the music going, he can't do anything. That's when I knew. There was no talking sense into her. People like Karen? They only learn the hard way. So, I went back inside, flicked on my security cameras, and waited. By afternoon, my windows were rattling from the base, teens were diving off my dock, white claws cracking open like they were at spring break, music thundering across the water. Karen stood there with a glass of wine, laughing like she owned the place, queen of Silverpine Lake. Then, right when I was about to lose hope, 2 sheriff's boats cut across the water, blue uniforms glinting in the sun. Someone else had called in a noise complaint, reported underage drinking. I didn't have to lift a finger. The deputies climbed up the dock, spotted me instantly. Chief, you want us to handle this? Karen's face drained white as printer paper. Wait, you the chief. I gave her the same little smirk she'd given me all week. That's right. She started stammering about a misunderstanding, but the damage was done. The kids scattered, the music stopped, and for one golden second, I thought the nightmare was over. But I was wrong. An hour later, my phone buzzes again, dispatch. Chief, we got a call. Woman's reporting you threatened minors with a firearm. My heart stopped. Who would? Caller identified as Karen Doyle. For a second, I just stared out at the lake. Same water that had been calm all morning, now rippling with dread. She was trying to frame me. Just like that, I saw my whole career hanging in the balance. Good cops have lost everything over less. I sat out on my porch, letting the worry eat at me, that tight, cold knot settling in my stomach. Maybe I should have just let her have the damn party. Maybe this was pride talking. But then I remembered all the faces neighbors Karen had bullied, fined, humiliated, the widow with her roses, the single mom shamed at a meeting, the family fined for Christmas lights. If I backed down, she'd just move on to the next person. That was it. I stood up, went inside, and checked my cameras, every angle, porch, dock, driveway. The videos were all there, clear as day. Ethan and his friends, trespassing, hauling alcohol, blasting music, and me, standing 20 feet away, hands in my pockets. No gun, no threats, just patience. When the patrol cars rolled into my driveway, red and blue flickering through the pines, I met them at the door. The same deputy from before looked at me, a little awkward, reading off his tablet. Chief, says here you threaten minors with a firearm. I just nodded. Let's watch the footage. We stood there, silent, as the truth rolled out on screen. The deputy blew out a breath. Got it. He turned to the window. Karen standing across the road, arms crossed, that smug little smile back on her lips. He walked over, radio at his belt. I waited by the door, listening to every word. Ma'am, you just filed a false police report. She blinked, lips pressed thin. No, I saw him. We reviewed the footage. There was nothing. Ethan mumbled. Mom, maybe we should go. Be quiet, Ethan, she snapped. That's when I stepped outside, badge on my belt, voice cool but sharp. Karen Doyle, you've harassed a resident, trespassed on private property, and filed a false police report. That's obstruction. She backed up, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. You can't arrest me. You're part of the HOA. I shook my head. No, ma'am. I own a house here. That's not the same thing. The deputy read her rights, slow and clear, while Karen tried to twist the story to anyone who'd listen. Retaliation. Abuse of power, she shouted, but nobody was buying it. Not this time. Curtains twitched, neighbors peeking out, phones in hand. Some even smiled, the way you do when you see the schoolyard bully finally trip over her own shoelaces. For years, Karen had ruled with her clipboard and her threats. Now she was living her own public shaming. I looked at her son, poor kid, pale as a ghost. I just told him, quiet as I could, you should call your father. He'll want to know where your mom's being processed. As the cruisers rolled away, lights skimming the water, fading into night, Silverpine was silent for the first time in months. 3 days later, the HOA called an emergency meeting. Standing room only. She fined me for wind chimes, one woman cried out. She opened my mailbox to check for litter, another said. Years of pent-up frustration spilled out. Anger, embarrassment, even a few laughs. Everybody had a Karen story. By unanimous vote, she was out. Karen Doyle, stripped of her presidency. They passed a new rule. No HOA officer could enter private property without written consent. That rule got real, honest applause. A week went by, and then an official letter from the HOA apologizing for Karen, promising she'd acted alone. Maybe she did, or maybe they were just scared now that someone finally stood up to them. Either way, I wasn't bitter. I went back to my porch, sat with my coffee, the lake golden under the setting sun. Sometimes, justice doesn't wear a badge. Sometimes it just means standing your ground, refusing to let someone who thinks they're the law run wild over everyone else. And you know what? Maybe you've been there. Maybe you're still fighting your own Karen, HOA or not. So, here's my question. When is it worth standing up, even if it costs you? Would you have backed down or called their bluff? Drop your story in the comments. Tell me where you stand on justice, what's right, what's wrong, and what you'd do if the law turned up at your door for doing nothing but protecting your own peace. I'll be reading every single one.